Imagine this. You're working on a huge project. You've got the funding. Everything's rolling. Then, boom. Overnight, the money is gone. What do? Change course or give up? That's exactly what happened to a bunch of African countries when US President Donald Trump suddenly cut off a big chunk of foreign aid. It left people asking, how much do these countries really rely on that money? Today, we're exploring the impact of that decision and meeting young Africans who are stepping up with their own solutions to major problems. I'm your host, Liz Show. Coming up, we're heading to Makoko, Nigeria, where kids learned about the power of hygiene until aid cuts pulled the plug. In South Africa, we discuss with young people about USAID pulling back from HIV treatment. And last but not least, we head to Addis Ababa, where rapid urban growth meets sustainable construction. When US President Trump came into office, one of the first things he did was shut down his government's foreign aid agency called USAID. Why this abrupt end to programs that provided food and medicine to vulnerable communities? Well, it's partly because Trump suspects corruption.
It's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
So, were US-supported development projects involved in corruption? We traveled to Nigeria to get some answers, and there we also learned how foreign aid was making a difference in the lives of the children in the Makoko slum.
Even small hands can spread germs. In the slum community of Makoko in Lagos, Dr. Cassandra Akinde teaches children the importance of proper hand washing. However, due to cuts in aid, she's been forced to reduce her operations.
The impact was actually quite significant. And so far, we've really been able to promote hygiene education among 50 schools. We've also been able to train teachers on how to sustain hygiene initiatives in their schools. We actually had to, stop our growth and focus more on survival because with the situation, there were lots of cut downs.
Makoko's residents face immense health risks due to the lack of toilets, waste disposal, and minimal infrastructure. Years of corruption and mismanagement have drained resources from critical services, including sanitation. Hope came in the form of USAID-backed programs that provided access to clean water and sanitation for underserved areas. However, when the US government under President Donald Trump reduced support, citing concerns about corruption, the consequences were immediate.
So the USAID pullback really affected the communities and the LUESH program, specifically in terms of the planned infrastructure, maintenance, and the construction of some of the infrastructure that was already planned. It had to be halted, and for some that have already started, it had to be stopped, midway. So that was quite serious.
But was corruption truly the main reason? Analysts say it's complicated.
It is largely underreported, but there are reports here and there to suggest that there are indeed corruption in the NGO sector. Recently, too, we've had issues around terrorism financing, being that NGOs were being the ones also benefiting, involved in this. So there are pockets of issues of corruption here and there.
In February 2023, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, charged the Young Alhaji Foundation in connection with a €550,000 fraud case. However, there is no public record of any Nigerian NGO funded by USAID being involved in corruption. Despite the allegations, Dr. Akinde emphasizes the importance of financial literacy and transparency.
I can only talk about my organization, and I can tell you that for Near Child Initiative for Africa, we have been very, careful about, holding ourselves accountable, ensuring that we are transparent. Regarding other partners, I can't really say. This situation is really affecting the development sector. Lots of people have lost their jobs, right? There are lots of communities are lacking, basic services. And this is really, really affecting, everyone. And I would really love to, be able to see some changes in the current status quo.
As the development sector faces funding shortfalls, the demand for sustainable local funding and increased government accountability is growing. The key question now is, who will fill the gap left by USAID?
Well, that's a question not only Nigeria, but also most other African governments need to answer quickly. I know some of you are at this point asking why we need all these millions of foreign aid dollars anyway. Valid question. I promise we'll get to it later. We'll meet up with our correspondents from the continent in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa on the sectors affected by the massive cut in American foreign aid. Let's leave the studio for now.
Education has also been hit hard. More than 13,200 out-of-school children who were getting help to return to school are now stuck. For many young Nigerians, these programs were the only real support they had. Now things are more uncertain, and planning for the future just became harder.
US funding previously made up just over a quarter of Kenya's official development money. And from what we hear, everything from education to the National Health Database could be affected. Most worrying, though, is the upkeep of life-saving measures like medication for the 1.4 million people in Kenya living with HIV. UNAID says there's enough medication for the next 3 to 6 months, but after that, the situation isn't clear.
HIV experts are concerned about the impact on vulnerable groups, such as the people that used to attend this clinic. Now, clinics like these have been set up by NGOs and universities, specifically focusing on communities like sex workers and members of the LGBTQI+ community. Historically, these communities were reluctant to attend government clinics because of the treatment they received there.
Thank you so much for those insights from Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. To get a closer look at these issues, we sent our own Edith Kimani to South Africa. Like many other African countries, South Africa's largest donor has been the US. In Johannesburg, Edith met with a group of young people to explore how receiving less aid is affecting their daily lives, and why this should make us rethink our reliance on foreign assistance.
Is Africa really so desperate that for years it has continued to outsource its most important services, including health, education, and even security? Well, this is the tough reality that African leaders are having to confront after America, the biggest aid donor by far, decided to cut back on development aid. What does this mean for Africa, and what does it mean for young people, particularly here in South Africa? So I'd like to start with Ibano Monde.
I'm living with HIV. And as of yet, I still have access to treatment, but we don't know for how long that's going to be.
Initially, when the news came that USAID will be rolling back, what was your initial feeling?
I was shocked because I never thought we would have to be at a place again where we wonder about HIV funding programs. So those words echoed in my mind the morning I saw the news and the articles. It was all over the internet, and it was just echoing in my head because I don't know what's going on and it's making me nervous.
So let me ask Fanyana here, because you're also working in the health space. How have people been affected?
Well, coming from the research perspective, a lot of trials, especially in VSRHI, have been started by being halted because before the funds were stopped completely. And I can tell you that participants are wondering, some are confused, because when you are part of a clinical trial, you're also going to receive your HIV medication. So right now, it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of mess, and reassuring participants that this is just not the research site's fault.
Now I want to come to Simon here, who is a co-founder of a Pan-African publication, The Continent. How did Africa get to a point where we are depending on another government's decisions for survival?
In 2015, African leaders said, we do not want the aid system. Please scrap aid entirely. It's not working for our countries. In return, What you guys can do is fix the tax loopholes that are allowing for illicit financial flows from this continent. Do you know what happened next? The United States and the United Kingdom, which at the time was representing the European Union, wouldn't even allow that question onto the agenda.
Right.
They did not want to have that discussion because the aid system worked for them.
Let me ask Karabo, who's a development expert, is it not possible to have both, get access to life-saving treatment or in any other sector and still sustain development within the local populations?
Okay, so I have an entirely different narrative in this conversation. Let me start off by acknowledging that, the losses that obviously we've incurred as a result of the withdrawal are unfortunate. However, I believe it's necessary.
In this case, short-term losses could be lives.
Absolutely. But the enemy here is our own governments. What are they doing to respond to this fiscus gap that has been created? There's a power that we have on this continent, and our leaders are not assertive enough.
Let me ask Ibano Monde, how do you feel about this? Because it's easy to conceptualize these ideas and make it sound really nice and intellectual, but the reality is you still need access to medication.
I think my take really is that healthcare is a global responsibility. We're even at a point where the HIV statistics have kind of decreased from what it used to be. And it didn't just happen miraculously. Countries came together and they said, let us collaborate in making sure that this HIV epidemic is fought.
Okay, let me, Karabo.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Health is a global responsibility. The geopolitics are changing. We're seeing a rise of nationalist politics, and we need to wake up as an African continent and start realizing it's survival of the fittest. Africa is on its own. We will continue being the extractive place where they'll extract a lot of our resources. We'll continue being, you can only have aid if you give us something. You only get our money if you give us something. So that's a wake-up call.
I really love the passion. And actually, somebody who might have an answer for you is Minya, who is part of an African potential group.
We have a lot of resources, and we have the youngest population. A population that's literally going to hold the global power in its hand. We need to have a response from government, and we are lacking it. How in any universe is it ethical just to pull the plug and create so much chaos?
So, Karabo, why aid and not investments? Why aren't African governments saying, bring your money, yes, but to help develop us?
I think we need to interrogate ownership and a lot of the resources on the continent. I think it's important, and perhaps I'm a radicalist, but I do think we need to take back ownership of the things that belong to us.
What things are these?
Our mineral resources, the private sector being able to do what they want as they want within the government. I do think that we need to take it all back and make them realize that the power sits with us.
Okay.
If you want to actually engage, it's our resources. You need to come and invest in us. Otherwise, we're always going to sit at the begging table.
All right.
I personally don't think South Africa is at the point where you can just say, cut all aid, let them go, and let us do our thing. I don't feel like we are there yet.
Let's hear from the gentleman here.
A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are now unemployed. What does this then do? It increases our unemployment rate from the large number that it was at to another larger number. This is the catalyst that we've always been looking for. We are at the point where now we need to stop being codependent on other people and start being independent for ourselves so that we can move on forward to having a better tomorrow.
Okay, then let me ask Minya, how easy is it to do that? Because we're speaking about the possibilities of Africa extricating itself from this infrastructure of aid, but how realistic is it?
I think it is realistic, but look, if everything was easy, it would have been done long ago. I want to take us somewhere. I think we look at aid, and the first thing I want to say is I think we need to change the discourse around aid. Stop thinking of it as a charity to Africa. It was never charity, it was soft power. It was diplomacy. Okay? And we need to stop receiving it as charity. Let's look at aid, whatever aid is left to flow into South Africa and the African continent, as a catalyst that we can use to implement the changes, to grow the industries and the economy within.
You had something to say, Nyakalo?
If you look at the US Embassy and its response, it did say, as per violation of human rights in South Africa, we do want to take the stand of pausing or stopping aid in South Africa. So that definitely has political implications. But we are looking at certain donor countries currently that want to bully Africans. And if we don't unify, we really are in siege.
Okay, so we want to hear from the youth, and that's why we're here. So because of time, let's hear some solutions. What do you think should happen so that we are not in the same situation 20, 30 years from now?
Okay, so I think the first thing is we need a narrative shift. So we need to start understanding that Uncle Trump, Global North are not our friends. Let's start there.
Uncle Trump.
Uncle Trump. And then number 2, regional cooperation. While we are diverse, because of colonialism, we are better together. And number 3, can the old mamas and fathers in government step aside? We are ready to take over.
We opened this debate with Iban Omondi. I'd like to conclude with you. Having listened to everything that everybody has to say, do you believe that the South Africa, and indeed the Africa of the next 10 years, will be better and more trustworthy than the governments we have now?
Yes, I do believe that Africa needs to be self-reliant. I do really believe in that. But this is where we're at currently, and we cannot neglect that. It is important that we are self-reliant, but we're here now and we need the government to step up. And when it comes to the HIV response, they cannot continue having conversations about HIV, people living with HIV, young people, without them in the room, because I don't think, frankly, they know the challenges that we're facing currently.
Okay, I love that young Africans here have said that they do have the answers. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But like Kendrick Lamar said, Africans, we gon' be all right. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, Edith, for that very lively street debate in Johannesburg. Now, since I'm talking to 77% fans, I don't need to tell you this, but I'm going to give you a little reminder anyway. You can always find the full-length version of the debate on YouTube. Next, we wanted to understand what aid cuts really mean for people living in a country at war when support is life-saving. For over 30 years, the Democratic Republic of Congo has been racked by fighting. In Goma, which is the capital of North Kivu province, we looked for people who would be willing to speak openly on camera, which can be dangerous when caught in conflict. But luckily, some brave voices on the ground agreed to talk to us.
The Democratic Republic of Congo. Every day, thousands flee violence, abandoning everything, their farms, their cattle, and their lives. The recent mpox epidemic is the latest blow, and the most vulnerable, the displaced, were hit hardest. But just when help was most needed, it vanished. The US administration abruptly froze USAID funding, which provided 85% of Congo's emergency aid. Aid projects collapsed, lifelines disappeared. Yakinte Marifa, a young Pan-Africanist from the Africa Pale group, questions the sudden cut in USAID funds. His group is often threatened following its research and analyses.
There was no tangible impact on the field, no good roads, schools or hospitals. This can be proved by the staff who were on those development projects. There is corruption that goes with unfinished operations. There are huge amounts of money used in development projects that have no specific plan. What we call plan here goes with every new government that comes in and presents some kind of unrealistic action plan. This results into gangs and smuggling because the more it's unstable, the more it comes with corruption, disorganization, and everyone makes their own rules.
Yakinte believes the aid system has become bloated, prioritizing paperwork and visibility over real solutions, especially in countries already shattered by conflict. Organizations on the ground know what their communities need, but they've long been shut out of major aid funds due to strict eligibility rules. Local aid workers like Mireille Ikuzwe will be there, delivering essential care to women and girls at risk, no matter what.
Our profile does not allow us to access funding. The requirements were too stringent. We were not eligible, but we kept applying despite these facts. If the USAID funding does not come back, there will be a gap in our budget provisions, but it will not stop us from serving the community.
In Congo, aid may come and go, but what remains is the will to survive and the courage of those who never stop fighting for a better tomorrow.
Speaking of a better tomorrow, we don't want to leave you feeling like everything is crumbling around you. As always, we want you to finish this episode with new ideas about what is possible. Like, let's take plastic waste. The bad part, research shows that plastic is spiraling out of control all across Africa. If the trend continues unabated, the region is projected to end up with 116 million tons of plastic waste annually by 2060. Now, the good part, some smart people got together and turned this waste into building materials for affordable housing. We traveled to the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, to meet the creative minds who opted for business partnerships over foreign aid.
Ethiopia is turning plastic waste into affordable homes. Across Africa, cities are expanding rapidly, but housing is in short supply. You can see this problem here in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. Meanwhile, plastic waste is piling up. Addis Ababa produces 750,000 tons of garbage annually, with plastic making about 13%. A local startup has found an innovative way to tackle both problems by turning plastic waste into affordable building materials.
This is actually how Cubic was founded. The founder and CEO of Cubic, Addis, at the time he was outraged by the situation and wanted to provide a solution, right? And so that's why it's important for us to be solving our own problems.
Founded after the tragic 2017 Koshe landfill disaster, which killed 113 people, Cubic was born from a desire to solve Ethiopia's twin problems of waste and housing. Its factory in Adama now processes 5 tons of plastic daily. These are then used to build homes, classrooms, and daycare centers. These buildings cost 40% less and take half the time to construct compared to traditional building methods.
A lot of plastics are being generated from the households, from manufacturing institutions, from commercial institutions, hotels, and everything like that. So there is huge plastic amount which is generated daily in Ethiopia. Specifically on the cities, the amount of plastic generated is very high. So if it is not going to be recycled or reused, this is going to be a huge problem.
In 2023, Cubic built a fully functional daycare in just 16 days with no cement and no heavy machinery, just precision-designed plastic bricks that fit together like Legos. And Cubic is doing more than building walls. The company has placed women at the center of its mission. It trains and employs them in roles traditionally dominated by men: construction, engineering, logistics, and finance.
I think when you work on women, you're pretty much building a very resilient society. Also, we want to build gender equality. So most of these fields, like the supply chain, engineering, construction, finance, they're mainly dominated by men. And we want to give the skill set, work on the skill set, and also the opportunity for women to thrive in these sectors.
Despite initial skepticism, Cubic's durable, eco-friendly structures are gaining support across Ethiopia. This represents hope for families struggling to find a home in a rapidly growing city. Zaleke Murad, a father of 3, knows this all too well.
Acquiring my own house is a primary goal. Everyone needs that, and that's what I want. Every Ethiopian, not just me, deserves a better life, one that includes a peaceful home and the ability to raise their children.
From trash to transformation, Cubic is proving that sustainable housing isn't just possible, it is already here.
And that's exactly the kind of innovation we need on the continent, solving problems, protecting the environment, and creating jobs and money all at the same time. If you are involved in a similar projects where people get together to think of how they can tackle problems themselves instead of waiting for aid from abroad, please let us know. We always love hearing from you, so feel free to reach out on social media. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm Liz Show. See you next time.